All right. Well, hello there, all you beautiful looking people. Thank you for tuning in to the Snake Podcast. Just a quick update. We're going to update the podcast to Snake72, the channel. The 72 being not that I was born in 72, but that we're going to try to have a new episode every 3 days, every 72 hours. So check out those updates. You'll see those posted on all the social media. Hello to our audience. Hello, everybody on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I definitely appreciate you tuning in your attention. I got a really good topic today that I wanted to kind of share with everyone. This one is going to be about home defense and home security. So just some suggestions. I picked a lot of these up from some research and talking with friends and just being in that lifestyle at one time. So just wanted to pass these along. My thoughts and the logic behind that are that some places are looking at defunding police, and I know that dynamic is very distressed right now. So, I definitely want people to just kind of have a mindfulness and an awareness of things they can do to kind of protect themselves and deter people, attackers or intruders or thieves in general. So, without further ado, let's get started. This is podcast number 2. So, we're growing. So, thank you for your patience. I know I'm still working on a lot of the editing stuff, but the whole show is procured by me. So a lot of that stuff is not my specialty, but I'm definitely picking it up and learning. So getting right into it. What we want to talk about today is just kind of a progressive plan, if you will, on some things that you can do just to kind of protect yourself. The first thing that I would start with, and it starts with the outside of the home. The first thing I would start with is you want to make sure that you get out and inspect all sides of your home, along every wall. Once or twice a month, I would say is sufficient. I do it once a week, but I'm out there with my dog. I find stuff out there that could be compromises, sometimes broken components and things of that nature. But another thing is there are also vantage points that, just walking around, I may catch someone that's kind of eyeballing my house. So, that kind of helps gain an awareness. I look for, windows and broken mechanisms with the doors. I look for everything just while I'm out there with my dog anyway. I do a lot of my workouts outside as well. So I'm pretty much already out there, but I thought that was a good place for us to start in terms of what you want to do around your house or whatever the unit that you live in, an apartment. You still got windows or a patio and that type of thing. So that is the first one. Wanted to move right along and talk about how to secure your gates. So, on my property, I have a side gate that goes into my backyard. But, I understand that in some properties, it's, a front gate and a back gate, a side gate, a patio or a porch. So the point that I want to make is that you don't want them to just be free entry. So if you have a gate in your front or backyard or your side yard, super easy just to install a lock. And that stops people from just being able to have free entry. People just walk in. I know carrying keys isn't necessarily everybody's thing. It's kind of inconvenient if you forget them and you got to run back and forth and find them. But just keep in mind that there are lots of locks that don't use keys. They use a series of push buttons or a rotating combination lock. So those things can be used in place of people that don't want to use the key. I completely understand that. And while you're out there, excuse me, you'll want to observe anything that can be used as a weapon that you normally keep outside. So at my house, it's common for us to get out every week and get after it with the weeds and, any of the growth that's out there that just, gets out of control. But from time to time, we'll leave maybe a shovel or a rake. But these are essentially just long bow staffs that somebody can use to break in windows, break in doors in some situations, to attack the people that are inside of the house. And you just don't want to give anyone an easy opportunity to use something against you. So instead, I've stored them inside my garage or in another secured area that's protected from possible intruders. So it also prevents your tools from being stolen. I had a shovel stolen recently this year, but another situation where it was left outside. The other point about that is that what would be tool thieves can turn into home intruders if they just see the opportunity. So by not having any tools or anything out there that somebody not only can A, use against you, but B, steal, C, they could also make a decision to try to get into your house now, or make a decision down the road after they've been looking in your windows or scoping out your house. Ultimately you want to stop your tools from being stolen and attracting, thieves for larger scores at your house. So moving right along, something that I've incorporated here is landscape rocks. So we have rocks that are larger than 1 inch, and they make a really distinct and loud crunching noise when anybody walks on them, when animals walk on them or whatever. So I bordered the house with them and surrounded the foundation of the house where all the windows are and just where the walk spaces are around the house. So anywhere where I felt like intruders might try to do surveillance or scope out what's inside the house, or even attempt to get around the house to gain entry. So something I like about that also is that my dog and my cat, they pick up on those sounds even right in the middle of some music. So even if it's loud inside, the dog and the cat can seem to hear those crunching sounds even if I miss them. And while we're at it, dogs and cats can often give you a real advantage to being alerted that there may be someone there. So, animals for sure, dogs primarily, but whatever you use. And then, having loud obstacles outside of your house that, you might hear someone going through. So still outside, we're going to talk about house keys and car keys, like spares. Don't keep any hidden around the house or the cars, even if you think you might be out there by yourself. There are often times that, people are just watching out windows or out from a tinted window vehicle, or, even drones could be in effect here, to give people a perspective of where you're either putting a key or recovering a key. So, and it may be your neighbors that, number one, do it themselves and come and break in your house later, but they could also pass that information on to an affiliate that can come, and break in and steal from your house and maybe compensate the neighbor. Like, there's just a lot of shitty situations out there, unfortunately. But, just keep in mind that there's, a lot of Bluetooth or internet connected door locks these days that could easily, sidestep this scenario. There are home door locks also, while we're talking about it, that have reinforced bolts and reinforced recesses where the bolts slide into that make it damn near impossible to someone kicking in your door. So those are some things that you can think about also in terms of the perimeters of your house. So while we're out there, we're also going to talk about, the car parked and all that stuff, but don't keep a garage door opener in your vehicle. So, especially when your vehicle is parked outside of your garage, in an easier place for someone to break in. A thief or an intruder can break into a vehicle outside of a house at 3 a.m. fairly quickly and without much, notice. So once they're into your car, if they notice that you happen to have a garage door opener, they can proceed to open your garage. So the dangerous part about that is most people don't lock the door that goes from the garage into the house, into maybe a laundry room or wherever the entry door goes to. So make it a habit to keep that door locked, the entry door from your garage into your home. So even if the thieves aren't able to break into your house, or you don't break into your car to get the garage door opener, or they are able to just get into the garage, there are some methods that are unfortunately employed there sometimes, where they break the little windows in your garage and can pull that string, and then that gives them access to being able to open the door if your garage door is not locked. So most people don't lock their garage doors. So nevertheless, they can gain access into the garage a lot easier than trying to break into your front door and then just get right in through the entry door to your home. So make it a habit, again, to keep that garage door locked, and do not keep a garage door opener in your vehicle overnight. Once you've used it to get into your house, take it out of your out of your vehicle and store it in the house. So another thing, you'll want to examine the windows and the window locks for every window and door around your home. Savvy intruders may know how or have tools to defeat the locking mechanisms that are on your window also. So try to employ a wooden bar or a metal bar or a dowel that will stop the window from being opened, like it cancels the mechanism or takes up the space, and it's even if the window was unlocked, it can't open because of that bar or that mechanism. Remember that vertical blinds, they can be slanted downwards to be able to let the person inside see, but the person from outside may not be able to see in very well. All this kind of depends on how your landscaping is and the altitudes are, the elevations of where your house is and where the people are outside. But most houses sit up in a way to where, if you slant your blinds downward a little bit, you can see out a lot better than the people outside can see in. So while we're talking about that, remember that you can answer your door without opening your door. So there's a window right next to my door, and I often will just peek out the window and keep my door locked. Even if you don't have a window, you can also speak through the door. So keep that in your mind, that when there's someone at your door or knocking or whatever the case may be, they can hear you outside your door, even if you're just talking normal. And it's also possible for you to raise your voice and make sure that you're heard. Or the point that I want to make is that you don't want to just open your door. Okay? So the next point that we're going to talk about is you'll want to get some type of home video camera system or security system that either you own or that you rent or lease from a company. The trick is that you want to make sure that you're using it. So when I say that, I mean, I know everyone uses them when they leave the house, but don't forget that they can also give you alerts while you're there at the house. So an example that I'll give you is I was out in my garage working on something. Maybe I was working out, but I had somebody come to my house about an offer they wanted to sell or something. But in my garage, it alerts my phone, so that I knew that someone was in my yard. I could actually see a snapshot of them and was able to leave my garage and get to my door before they even knocked on it. So that's a kind of lame example, but I think you know what I'm talking about when I say that you want to have your security system on both when you're there and when you're not there. Some people elect to use security companies that monitor for you and will check into events of intrusion detection, motion sensors, those types of things. So whatever you may use, the thing that I want you to remember is that savvy intruders understand that most of these security systems will run on wireless or other types of internet throughout the house, and they've developed a technique to where they will kill the internet to the house before they break in. So what that does is it cancels out all of the security systems, so that if you have your typical security system, you get no feed, no footage of what happened there. The logic about that is I also happen to have cameras that face where the internet is connected to the house. So in theory, if someone was going to come in and disconnect my internet, I would see them on my camera that faces where my internet connection is. So they may cut it still, but I'll have some footage before that happens and be aware of what's going on. I do think that there's other companies also that use a different type of signal, to where even if an intruder would try this technique of cutting the internet, their service runs on another system. So depending on what your situation is and what your concerns are there, those are definitely some options. But I really do think in this day and age that you should have one of those. I happen to use Zmodo. Props to Zmodo. They've definitely had some devices that are completely functional and everything that I've needed that run off of my phone. And I also use an August lock, Bluetooth lock. So just some things for some recommendations that I'll throw out there for you. The other thing you want to do is whether you have a system or not, it's always a good idea to try to display some signage in your windows that suggests or states that your house is being monitored or protected by that, either a security company or that your house is being protected by firearms. In all seriousness, like I think that criminals in this day and age and these times are very cognizant that their life is on the line if they want to try to mess with somebody's house. So just kind of stating the obvious sometimes is a good deterrent. If you are unable to afford any of those devices, because they're a couple hundred, I think my Zmoto and my August system ran me around the ballpark of 500, just kind of putting it together piece by piece. But there are also some lower priced or some more affordable devices that will sound off if someone opens a window or trips a motion detector loud enough to where if you're in the house, you'll know. Also, if you're not in the house, I think it will kind of send them, potentially send the intruder running out of the house because they're maybe concerned or worried that it's connected to a larger alarm system. So those are also things that you can employ if those are what you can get your hands on. Another thing that I wanted to suggest is wherever possible, connect with your neighbors and have each other's phone numbers, emails, that type of thing. Several community awareness apps have been emerging in the Apple or Android marketplaces. So just keep in mind that there's apps out there like Nextdoor and Ring and probably a couple others that will help you stay informed about things that are going on in your neighborhood and connect with your neighbors. Also, I use a news app called Newsbreak that gives me more official news, I guess, but it helps me stay connected with things in my neighborhood. Still the same. And the Citizen app, which is, an aggregator of police reports that are made and kind of correlates them to your area, like where you happen to live and things of that nature. Know the contact numbers for your local law enforcement in your area and, have a plan of what you can do if something that was to happen. Another thing that I wanted to throw out there is use a sleep timer. Use a sleep timer on your TV or your radio if you listen or watch at night while you're going to sleep, because while they're still on at 3 a.m. and you're way sleeping, it can drown out sounds if someone is kicking in your door or breaking your windows to get into your house. Also, if someone is in your home and you're leaving the room that has the sound in it, like your TV or your radio, you can kind of pick that out, from another room that there's someone approaching. So you may have the drop, or they may have the drop on you to know that you're approaching and you're just waking up out of a sleep. So, those are things to think about with your TV or your, whatever's loud in your home. While you're in your home, arm yourself with something. My first choice is a firearm, but I have plenty and appreciate blunt and edged weapons just as much, almost just as much. Remember, there's tasers out there and pepper spray for non-lethal means of self-defense. Depending on your situation, it may be necessary to have several. Where you may strategically place throughout your home in the event that you have an intrusion when you're in the laundry room. There's something close to where you're at there. If you're back in your bedroom, you've got something there. If you're in your kitchen, you've got something there. So it's just something that I would recommend for any of us. Some of the intruders that may attempt to break into people's houses may not, number one, be armed themselves with a knife or a bat, but also they may be a lot bigger than the person in the house or more skilled, physically. So you need something that's going to help you equalize that. So, and then practice. You're going to have to practice with whatever your weapons are, so that you are able to use them in a crisis situation when your motor skills may not be that great, probably won't be that great. So if you've got a firearm, make sure you know how to shoot it. Make sure you know where your ammo is and all of those different things. This isn't going to be a podcast about firearms specifically, but there's a lot to be said there if you're going to use firearms in your home. And then if you're using, a bat, a knife, a sword, nunchucks, whatever the case may be in that situation, make sure that you know how to actually use those things. So another recommendation there would be arm yourself with martial arts. That way you're able to fight, unarmed, hand-to-hand combat. I personally have studied Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for over a decade, so I appreciate that in a home defense capacity because it can take things to an end very, very quickly. An example that I'll give you is there was an MMA fighter, I can't remember who it was, recently that had somebody break into their house, and he tells a story about how the person, was absorbing all these punches and knees and kicks. In the back of my mind, I was thinking, well, it would have only taken about 30 seconds to choke him out. So another thing, even if people are stronger and can take a beating, or if they're under the influence of something, their body biological mechanisms still work the same. Whereas if you deplete the oxygen in the blood to their brain, they will go to sleep. So that's something to think about in terms of home defense. But you want to arm yourself, like I said, and a martial art is pretty effective in terms of being able to neutralize an opponent. So, and then I also understand that there may be some situations or families or households that maybe don't believe in lethal weapons. They don't want to keep a gun around. They don't want to keep a katana around. I get it, but there are a lot of improvised weapons where if you just went in with a plan and had a practiced routine or drill of what you did. I mean, you could use a frying pan, quite a formidable weapon if you just have a plan and then use it with a purpose. An iron, these are things that you could also strategically place around your house and have the intent to grab them if there was a home intrusion. Because you don't want to go back and forth and fight somebody for 20 minutes. You want to put them out. So, bow staffs, baseball bats, golf clubs, whatever the case may be, those things can often be placed, without causing too much notice. But as long as you are cognizant and have a practice of using them in the event that someone did get into the house, those can be effective too. So make sure that you talk to those that you cohabit with. Have a plan with them too. If there's a fire or if someone broke into the house and there was an altercation, what are people supposed to do? Who's supposed to call? Is everyone supposed to leave the house? Do they go to the neighbors? But with no plan, it can only be chaos. So try to talk those things out and try not to get under the impression that it just can't happen to you, because I guarantee you probably 90-something% of the people that it did happen to were saying the same thing before it happened to them. So it's real, and it could very likely get a lot worse, especially in some of these other cities that are crumbling, with the law enforcement initiatives. So take care of yourselves out there and just think it through. It can happen. So the last thing that you want to do is have no plan and not be prepared. Last thing that I want to talk about is knowing your laws. Super important, especially when it comes to firearms. Know your laws and your local laws so that you're fully cognizant and aware of what you can and can't do legally, at least what the laws consist of, so that you'll be able to maneuver, heaven forbid, if you did have to, shoot someone protecting your home. There's a long process that happens after that in terms of, being taken into custody, potentially, the things that you should and should not say. Definitely recommend a concealed carry course, for some of the background on that. They definitely give you some insight on some of the parameters that are involved there to whether or not you can shoot someone to protect yourself. So, but even with an edged weapon or a bat, those are, or a blunt weapon, those are still things that you want to know about in terms of like law enforcement, politics and things of that nature. Last thing that you want to do is try to protect your family and your home, and now you're going to jail for manslaughter. So, you definitely want to understand what your rights are. So, this was going to be a shorter podcast. This is podcast number 2. Thank you for your attention. I hope that helps, everyone that listens. Was going for a little bit shorter of a podcast, and I'm going to try to deliver some content every 72 hours again. So the channel will be Snake72. This is Snake the Nephilim, wishing you nothing but safety and well-being out there, prosperity. And I'll see you on the next podcast, 72 hours from now. Thank you.